Hey, hope we're all doing well. My name is Fabian Dolan. This is how I got good at guitar. Just want to start off by hopefully giving you some inspiration if you're currently a beginner / intermediate player, right? I'm going to show you what I used to sound like. So this was me here performing with a band when I was a beginner / intermediate player, and I had no clue what I was doing on the instrument. I didn't know how to sound good at all, and I was frankly quite embarrassed to play in front of other people as well, right? You couldn't really... I'm kind of hiding away here, right? So I managed to teach myself quite a bit and improve and advance my guitar playing. So if we take a listen to how that sounded just a few years later... I think we can all agree that that sounds a lot more professional, a lot more better, right? So if you want to be able to do the exact same thing yourself, again, check the link in the descriptions. I'll be able to offer personalized one-on-one lessons with you and help you reach your desired goal and become an actual decent guitarist, right? So, what do I do? My job is to help guitarists advance their playing. As you can see here, I have some nice words from my students, some other people that I've helped on YouTube as well. And again, this is all educational content. This is not entertainment. So if you're looking to be entertained, please go elsewhere. The stuff that I cover on this is all about the techniques that I used to actually advance my playing. It's everything that I use myself, right? I don't want to hide any secrets from anyone, okay? So today's video is all about triads. What are triads? What are the shapes that we need to learn on guitar? And then once we actually understand these shapes, how do we use them to make music? So, we have to start off with a bit on just learning what triads are. A triad is 3 notes stacked in consecutive thirds. You take one note, a starting note, this can be the lowest note. You add a third on top of that, so either a major or a minor third. And then from that new note that you've added, you add another third on top of that. So you have 3 notes. You play them all together and you get a triad. So as you can see here, again, you don't have to understand and read music to be able to grasp the concept here. I just want you to be able to kind of visualize what's going on. So with a major triad, we have a root note here. We add a major third on top of that. So we have these 2 notes. And then with this new note that we've added, we add another third on top of that to get a C major triad. Sounds something like this. So I have a root note. I add a major third. And then from this note here, the new note that we've added, if I add a minor third on top of that, which is this, and then I play all of them together, there we go, we got a C major triad. Okay, what about a minor triad? So I have A. I add a minor third, which sounds like this. And then from this minor third, I add a major third, which sounds like that. I put all those pieces together and I get this. So these are how triads are constructed and actually made. So I'm sure there is a lot of people that have heard the word triad before. They know it's a concept, but they don't really know what it means. So this is what a triad is. This is how you build one. Okay? So for a major triad, we get a root, we add a major third, and then on top of that new note, we add a minor third. For a minor triad, we add a root, then a minor third, and then on top of that minor third that we've added, we add a major third. So if you wanted to be able to craft your own triad from any note, for example, let me do this here. Let's make an E major triad. So I get the note E, I find a major third from E, which is this, and then from that new note, I find a minor third, which sounds like that. I play them all together. I get the E major triad, right? Let's quickly go over what happens when we stack identical thirds. So this is when you want to play around with things a bit more, you get a bit more advanced. if you add a minor third from the minor third that you've already added, you get a diminished triad. So if I start on the note E again, there we go, I've got a minor third, and then if I add another minor third on top of that, sounds like that. I add everything together, it gets this diminished sound. Again, if I wanted to make that major, get E, add a major third, and add a major third from the new note I've added, I get this augmented sound. And you can hear these two are quite tense and uncomfortable and kind of ugly sounding, right? So that kind of shows you that you need both major and minor to balance things out, right? You need a balance of both to be able to have nice sounding chords, right? Anyway, that's advanced stuff right there. What we need to talk about here though is a concept called inversions. So once we have our triad, we can actually mix up the order of the notes, but as long as we still have the same names of each note, it's always going to be the same triad. So I could play a C major triad is the notes C, E and G. I could change the order in which those notes happen, so the lowest note being E, then G, and then the highest note being C. It's still a C major triad. We just call it an inversion because we've inverted the order of the notes. Now, why do we want to do this? This sounds complicated, right? But it allows us to kind of progress and kind of ascend or descend our chords, and also it allows us to switch between other chords and other different inversions of other names of chords and find voicings that are closer together, right? So if I wanted to start down here, I could build up the song a bit by moving the triads around and the inversions, right? Again, we're going to get onto this a bit more later, but I just want you to be aware of what the actual concept is. I don't want this to be alien to you. This is something that we're going to be using, and it's going to be incredibly useful for you once you learn the shapes and how to jump between root positions of one chord and then an inversion of a different chord. It's going to show you that a lot of chords share similar notes, and the shapes are actually a lot closer together than you might realize, right? A lot of you might be used to playing chord progressions where I don't know what I was just doing there, right? But like you're jumping all across the neck. There is a way to play chords where you don't really have to move around the neck that much. Like the distances between moving your hand is actually very small. It's a lot more economic and ergonomic on the guitar if we use this approach. So we've gone over triads. Now we have to learn what the shapes are. So we're going to cover the shapes from the D, G and B string today, just because I think they're the most useful shapes to learn. They allow us to like go higher in pitch and use the E string and add extra notes, and they also allow us some room to go lower in pitch if we need to, and use some more bass notes. Again, if you want to learn how to apply every single shape on every single string, check the link in the description for one-on-one coaching. I'll be able to cover everything you need there, right? So the shapes. We're going to do G major today, right? So we start on the 5th fret of the D string, 4th fret of the G, and 3rd fret of the B. We get this kind of slanted line type of shape. So this is our root position. And then we can play the same chord again, but invert it and play this shape here. So we start on D on the 9th fret, G on the 7th fret, and then B on the 8th fret. The shape looks somewhat like this, right? So quickly, just practice going between those two shapes. Just practice going between the two of them. And then finally, we have our second inversion, which is quite easy to play actually. It's just a bar across the 12th fret. Right? and then it repeats itself up an octave. So it's this shape, but up 12 frets. So what I want you to be able to do is practice going between each of these shapes. So we play the root position here. Again, the tabs here if you need it. Pause the video if you're stuck. And then go back down again. Right, so these are our major triads and the major inversions. So let's go over the minor ones now. So the only difference between a major and a minor triad is just one note. So the shapes are going to be similar, but one note is going to move. So we start on the 5th fret again of the D string, but this time our fingers bar across the 3rd fret. So we have this shape here, it sounds like this. Then our first inversion goes to the 8th fret, 7th on the G, 8 on the B. Sounds like that, kind of looks like this as well, right? And then our second inversion, again to the 12th fret, 12th fret on the G as well, but 11 on the B. Again, practice going between up and down those. So yeah, pause this video for a couple minutes, just practice going between the shapes, learn them, get them under your fingers, and keep practicing over them for a good couple weeks, get them in your muscle memory. So, we've gone over what is a triad, what are the shapes we need to know, and then how do we use them in our playing. I'm going to show you how to use them in our rhythm playing and our solos at the moment, right? So, we can use triads and inversions to follow the chord progression with less hand movement, right? The gaps between the notes are going to be smaller. This helps us recognize which notes are shared between chords. So if you want to learn to be able to play through changes, you're going to have to learn to apply these triads to a chord progression and take a triadic approach, right? So I'm going to show you this example over the chords for can't stop. So the chords that happen in the verse and the solo section are E minor, D major, B minor, and C major, right? So if we wanted to play them like bar chords, it might look something like this, right? And then D major, and then B minor, and then C major there, right? So that's what we wanted to do if we had bar chords. But see how little my hand moved? Everything was pretty much within the space of these 4 frets here. So let me try that again, right? Again, look at my hand, look how little it's moving around everywhere. And again, look, the difference between the D major chord and B minor, I'm just changing one note. So this is why triads are useful, is to help us see that there are actually a lot of similarities between the chords that we use. Right? So, I'm using a root position for this B minor chord. Let me go from the top actually. So I have this second inversion shape for E minor. Then I use the second inversion for D major. Then I use the root position for B minor. Then I use the root position again for C major. Again, what if I wanted to change this, right? So let's do root position for E minor, root position for D major, first inversion for B minor, first inversion for C major. You see, there's not a lot of movement when I do this. When I compare root positions of one chord with inversions of another chord, you really don't have to move your hands around that much, right? So again, this is going to be quite useful for your rhythm playing, especially if you've got a bass player that's playing the root notes for you. You can just kind of move around, stay in one position. You You kind of really don't have to do much. And again, it allows you to add these extensions in, right? I digress, right? So we can use these triads and inversions for our rhythm playing and our lead playing. Again, if we look at the solo that John Frusciante plays there, right? Every single note in that solo is hitting one of those chord tones for each of the corresponding chords that play. So we have E minor. He's bending to E minor. And then he's playing D for D major, just the note D. Then he's playing B for B minor, just the note B. And then he goes to C for C major. So he's just playing the root notes pretty much. So if I play the chords over, I'll try and do both at the same time, just so you can hear it. Sorry. Right? All of the notes that he's bending to are just the root notes of each of the chords. So this way it's going to sound like you're playing through the changes and you're playing more melodically by hitting the correct chord tones. So, if we use triads and we learn the inversions of the chords and how to play them through a progression, we can play through the changes, create our own solos, and sound melodic. So if I wanted to play the chords, and you'll be able to hear the chord progression as I play it melodically, right? So I'm going to run through these chords: E minor, D major, B minor, C major, right? So. Right, you get the idea. I'm just running through triads and I'm using the individual notes to create a melody, and I can just kind of dance around them and play a solo that way. So if you want to be able to play through chord changes and sound a lot more melodic, and even when you're just playing a melody by yourself with no accompaniment, you'll be able to hear the chord changes going through if you use this approach. If you write down a chord progression, and then if you play the triads, again, what I'm doing here, I call it like dancing around the triads. Right? If you learn how to apply these root positions and inversions to each chord, you can go all over the fretboard just only playing the correct melodic notes. Again, this is what John is doing here. He's finding the root notes of each of the chords and playing that in the solo, and it sounds melodic, right? That's all that you need. It's just the triad tones. It's the root, the third, and the fifth. And then you're going to sound like a pro, right? You're going to sound melodic. And you're not going to have to do a lot. You're not going to have to be like shredding and like playing a million notes. You can know perfectly what the right notes are and be confident that you're always going to sound good when you play them over the chord, right? So, we've gone over triads, what they are, what are the shapes that we need, and how we use them in our chord playing and our solos. So, well done. Thank you for making it towards the end. My name has been Fabian Dillon. This has been How I Got Good at Guitar. Link in the description for lessons. So if any of this stuff confused you, or you're not quite sure about it yet, and you want to be able to incorporate it into your playing and advance your playing, again, check the link in the description. We'll see if we can work one-on-one with each other, right? Subscribe for more high-quality content. And again, if you've got any questions, follow me on Instagram. Thank you.